look centered?
This?
Yeah.
You're a little bit over to the, this side, but you're in the frame.
But should it be left or right? The camera.
We're gonna move it? So
Yeah, you just slightly. Okay, thank you. Jai Suparikar Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Shri Shri Radha Govinda Gopinath Madan Mohan Jiyo Ki Jai Jai Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Jiyo Ki Jai Jai Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Sudarshan Chakra Jiyo Ki Jai Jai Shri Giriraj Govardhana Ki Jai Shri Shri Nitai Gauranga Ki Jai Jai Shri Nrsimha Bhagavan Ki Jai Jai Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Mahabhagavat Srila Gaura Das Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Srila Sachidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai Vaishnava Sarvabhaum Shri Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Rupa Nugavadi Bharata Ki Jai Jai Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunath Sara Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai Srila Swarup Damodar Vai Ramanandari Gaur Parsada Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sikaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopi Go Govardhan Dvadashavinatmaka Shri Braj Mandala Dhama Ki Jai Shri Shyama Kunda Radha Kunda Yamuna Ganga Tulsi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Shri Shri Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Shri Braj Mandala Dhama Ki Jai Jai Shri Jagannatha Baladev Subhadra Sudarshan Chakra Jiyo Ki Jai Shri Jagannath Puri Kshetra Dhama Ki Jai Jai Shri Shri Radha Govinda Radha Gopinath Radha Madan Mohan Jiyo Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Gokulananda Radha Shyama Sundar Radha Raman Radha Damodar Jiyo Ki Jai Srimati Lalita Vishaka Adi Ashtasaki Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Rupa Manjari Rati Manjari Adi Manjari Vrinda Ki Jai Srimati Vrinda Devi Ki Jai Srimati Purnamasi Yogamaya Devi Ki Jai Shri Gopishwar Mahadeva Ki Jai Sarva Vishta Pradata Giriraj Govardhana Ki Jai Grantra Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Nanda Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Samagata Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Jai Shri Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Juta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Harijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Landayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Vansha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evaja Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gauratishe Namah He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Brindai Tulsi Devai Priyai Keshavasya Cha Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavachai Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I'm offering my Dandavat Pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipful beloved Gurudev, Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa, Ashtotarasata Sri Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada. Then I'm offering my same unlimited Dandavat Pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipful beloved Siksha Gurudevs, Nityalila Pravishtom Vishnupad Paramahansa Astatarasata Sri Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj, and Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Astatarasata Sri Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. My Dandavat Pranams to the lotus feet of all my Sri Sri Rupa Nuga Guru Varga, and my Dandavat Pranams to all the Vaishnavas and all the Vaishnavis. So yesterday we read two different instructions. One is, it is necessary to make earnest efforts in bhajan and sadhana. Here it is being quoted from the Madhya Lila chapter 24, that Krishna praying can never arise without making special efforts in bhajan sadhana. Bengali says, Jat na graha vina bhakti na janmai preme. So, Krishna praying can never arise without making special efforts in bhajan sadhana. So what is bhajan sadhana? What is bhajan sadhana?
Well, to me it would be some kind of daily practice for me with that book and learning certain, learning and singing certain, and then learning what they mean, and
Mhm. Yes, that's one little tiny particle of bhajan sadhana. KK.
Yes.
What is bhajan sadhana?
The practices required on the path of sadhan bhakti, so different kinds of chanting, mahamantra and seva, and different moods that you're developing along the process. So your sadhan, are you waking up and performing Mangalarti and chanting your rounds and chanting your Gayatri mantras and performing other kinds of activities, prescribed activities favorable for the development of bhajan.
What is bhajan?
Bhajan. The immersion in the worship of Krishna, Hari Guru Vaishnava. Bhajan.
Just like we say in many of our songs, Bhaja Baka Tava Sarashri Gaura Hari Bhaja.
Worship.
The word bhaja, Prabhupada breaks it down in the Gita, Bhagavad Gita. It comes from the root bhaj, B-H-A-J. He said bhaj, which means when there is need of service. He uses that term, when there is need of service. So, bhajan is usually used, the term bhajan and the term sadhana are quite often used side by side.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's called, like here, bhajan and sadhan, and sometimes it's called sadhan bhajan. So the word sadhana is all the practices that we are engaged in the 64 limbs of bhakti, in the 9 limbs of bhakti, all of our efforts to practice the process of regulated Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, right? And of course, sadhana goes all the way up to the very, very highest stages of especially asakti, ruchi, asakti, and then bhav. But in the stage of bhav, it is no longer called sadhana. Why? Because what is the stage of bhav, and why would it not be called sadhana once one reaches into that stage?
Is it already like a stage of perfection, and so it's not a stage of necessarily practicing aspiring bhakta following regulated principles, but you were nearing prem, so you were almost self-realized soul who has realized their, I don't know at what stage, I don't remember at what stage you realized your your own spiritual form and nature.
You realize that in that stage.
Bhav, right?
In the stage of bhav, fully realized. You fully realize it. In the stage of asakti, you get glimpses. But the main point is that the stage of bhav is actually a completely transcendental reality. Shuddha sattva visheshatma prema suryam susamyabhak. It's actually a tiny little particle of a ray of prema that is shining within the heart of the sadhak. So now he's siddha, he's perfected. But in the stage of siddhi, in the stage of perfection, many, many, many stages to be reached still. But this is the preliminary stage of Krishna prema, right? So in our lower stages, in the stage of Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, or even in Raganuga sadhana bhakti, all of our efforts in practicing the process of bhakti can be called sadhana, and it can also be called bhajan. The first time that I met Gurudev, personally, he asked me the question, how is your bhajan? You know, when you meet someone in the West, you just say, how are you, right? In your greeting. You say, how are you doing? How are you doing? How are you? I'm okay, I'm fine, like this. But the pure Vaishnavas, when they ask you how you are, because they themselves are immersed 24 hours a day in sadhana bhajan, and they see all the aspiring Vaishnavas as also being involved in this process, although on a much more elementary level, okay? But their question is, how is your bhajan? How is your worship going on? How is your worship of Sri Krishna's name, form, qualities, pastimes, and so forth? How is it going on? Oh, there's been some interruption. Oh, there's been some slack. Oh, you're very earnestly endeavoring. Oh, very good. Everything is judged from the point of view of how is your sadhana? How is your bhajan going? You see? Now, here, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is pointing out that every devotee has to make not just efforts, but earnest efforts in their bhajan and sadhana. Why? Because if such earnest efforts are not made, then what will be the condition? Krishna prem can never arise. It will not arise just by trying to put everything on automatic pilot. Right? Oh, I'm doing, right? That's okay. That's okay. That's beneficial. But we have to become conscious in our efforts. We have to be striving with very focused consciousness. And we have to be endeavoring to serve Krishna with 4 aspects of our self. Body, our senses, that means. Mind, our words, and also our emotions. Our emotions. These are the elements that have to be applied in the process of performing bhakti. Performing bhakti means anukulyena Krishna anushilana, a constant cultivation. So now here we see that our great acharyas, the personalities whom we revere, like the 6 Goswamis, who are the last picture on the left on the altar here of the gurus. They're direct associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They lived in Vrindavan. They did extreme efforts in their sadhana bhajan. All of our acharyas have also shown that example in their lives. The intensity, the constant endeavor, without interruption. They're showing the example. What does it mean to have pure bhakti? Pure bhakti, I want to make this point, pure bhakti can give Krishna prem. But pure bhakti is not necessarily yet Krishna prem. It means that you are on the pathway of attaining Krishna prem, and the more pure that your bhakti becomes, the more quickly that Krishna prem will arise. So anyway, I'm not going to go too much further in this point because I want to move along. But the main thing is that it is very necessary to make earnest efforts in bhajan and sadhana. What would be the opposite of earnest efforts?
Lazy.
Lazy. Mm-hmm.
Coming and going with it.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Thick and thin. This is called anishtita. Anishtita means unsteady. Unsteady bhajan. There are actually 6 different types described in the Shastras of the syndromes of unsteady bhajan. 6 different ways that it manifests. We'll talk about that another time. But that's one of them. It's called Ghanatarala means thick and thin. Sometimes thick, sometimes thin. Or Vyudavikalpa, oscillating back and forth, indecision. You see. So, we should be conscious of this in our efforts, in our sadhana bhajan life. We should be conscious of this, that we should always earnestly be endeavoring, sincerely and earnestly. Earnest means with a sense of urgency.
Yeah.
Earnest, very earnest, with a sense of great need. I must do this. So, next point that Bhaktivinoda Thakur is making is about the association of logicians. You know what a logician is?
Not really. I mean, I could guess, but...
Right. So, in the time of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the very place where he was born, where he appeared, in Sridham, Mayapur, Navadvip, was one of the most well-known areas of all of India at that time, where there were many, many great pundits, scholars, very wise, learned persons, okay? And there was a system called Nyaya. Nyaya, N-Y-A-Y-A, Nyaya. So that system means logic. Now, when, even in universities, there are debating teams, they debate, right? And they're given a particular topic and they have to make a presentation, make their presentation, try to convince everyone about their theory or whatever it may be. Jai Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Radha Govinda Jiyo Ki Jai. Jai Radhe, Jai Radhe, Jai Radhe. Hare Krishna. So they have debating teams, right? In universities. So their objective is to defeat the other party. And they have to present so many particular points of logic. Okay? So many points of logic they have to present. Even in a courtroom, similar kind of thing. But logic itself is a presentation of thought processes that are supposed to convince you that something is correct. So, in philosophy, especially in the sphere of existential philosophy, to understand existence, to understand the existence of this universe, the existence of everyone, there are many, many different philosophical points that are presented in the Shastras. But there are also analogies given to prove those points, because analogies are using a particular kind of logic to give an analogy, so that somebody can follow, like this. But this is a kind of, to become too much absorbed in logic and displaying your logical capabilities. These are, there's a particular name for such persons, yes, tarkic, tarka. Tarkic. So, yesterday I spoke about one of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's great associates, Sri Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who Mahaprabhu met, or not yesterday, the day before yesterday, yes, because yesterday we didn't have a class. So, when Mahaprabhu met after taking sannyas. So I talked about it quite extensively the day before yesterday. And the thing that is being told here is that these kind of persons, logicians, their association, for one who wants to endeavor on the path of pure bhakti, they are completely to give up the association of logicians and all of their, here he's saying howling, like jackals howl at night. So he's actually using this example. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is talking in a humble way about himself, how previous to meeting Mahaprabhu, he said, I was howling like a jackal in the association of logicians. And I was wasting my time in useless logic and argument. But now, with the same mouth, I am constantly chanting the names of Sri Krishna and Hari. See?
Good choice.
Yes. Now, the next point is being made by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, that one should feel distress upon witnessing the distress of others. So now, for this point, feeling distress upon witnessing the distress of others, here, Madhya Lila Chaitanya Charitamrita chapter 15, verses 162 to 163 are being quoted. Jiver dukkha deki mor hridaya bidari, sarva jiver pap prabhu deho mor shire. Jiver pap laya mui karo narak bog, sakala jiver prabhu guchaho babarog. Now, if you haven't heard of this person before, and this particular pastime of this great devotee of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you will be quite amazed. There is one great devotee of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu named Vasudev Datta Thakur. So in this part of Chaitanya Charitamrita, Vasudev Datta Thakur, one of Mahaprabhu's eternal associates, he approached Lord Chaitanya one day and he said, Oh Prabhu, my heart breaks upon seeing the miseries of all these conditioned living entities in this universe. I therefore pray that you give all their sins to me. I will suffer in hell on their behalf. And you please destroy their disease of material existence. You never heard of this devotee, did you?
Wow.
Nor of his request from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That is, I'm going to actually reference that and read this. Madhya Lila chapter 15, verses 162 to 163. So Lord Chaitanya was surrounded by his followers in Jagannath Puri, and he was meeting he was meeting each one of them one by one and interacting with them. Okay? Now, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then embraced Vasudeva Datta And he began to speak of his glories as if he had 1,000 mouths. Mahaprabhu was glorifying his devotee and speaking like as if he had 1,000 mouths after embracing him. And when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu glorified him, Vasudeva Datta immediately became very much embarrassed and shy. And he then submitted himself, touching the Lord's lotus feet. Vasudeva Datta told Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, "My dear Lord, you incarnate just to deliver all conditioned souls. I now have one petition, which I wish you would accept. My Lord, you are certainly able to do whatever you like, and you are indeed merciful. If you so desire, you can very easily do whatever you want. My Lord, my heart breaks to see the sufferings of all the conditioned souls, and therefore I request you to transfer the karma of their sinful lives upon my head. My dear Lord, let me suffer perpetually in a hellish condition, accepting all the sinful reactions of all living entities. Please finish their diseased material life." When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard Vasudeva Datta's statement, his heart became very soft. Tears flowed from his eyes, Mahaprabhu, and he began to tremble. And in a faltering voice, he spoke as follows. Accepting Vasudeva Datta as a great devotee, the Lord said, "Such a statement is not at all astonishing, because you are the incarnation of Prahlad Maharaj." You know who that was? And do you know the Lord Nrsingadev story? He was the young boy who was being tortured by his father. The demon Hiranyakashipu and Lord Nrsingadev, half man, half lion, manifested to save him. And that young boy is named Prahlad Maharaj. And so actually here Lord Chaitanya is saying, "O Vasudeva Datta, this is not at all astonishing what you have spoken, because you are the incarnation of Prahlad Maharaj. It appears that Lord Krishna has bestowed complete mercy upon you. There is no doubt about it." So Prahlad Maharaj, just for your information, he spoke many prayers to Lord Nrsingadev after he was rescued and after the demon was killed. Then the demigods and the great sages, they all descended there in front of Lord Nrsingadev. And no one could calm him down. Lord Nrsingadev was so angry, because his anger was against the demon who was trying to kill his pure devotee, Prahlad. So Lord Nrsingadev, he couldn't be calmed down even by Lord Brahma and the other demigods, even Lakshmi Devi, his own consort. But then Lord Brahma said, "Prahlad, our Lord has appeared in this form for you. So you please go forward toward him." And then Prahlad, who was only 5 years old, he walked towards Lord Nrsingadev very fearlessly, even though Lord Nrsingadev was roaring and was so angry. And immediately, as soon as he paid obeisances to Lord Nrsingadev, now Lord Nrsingadev calmed down completely. And then he put his hand on Prahlad's head and blessed him. And then Prahlad spoke many prayers to Lord Nrsingadev. And these prayers are very, very famous. They must be read by all devotees. Lord Chaitanya told this. If anyone wants to become a pure devotee, they will have to study the prayers and the character of Prahlad, because Prahlad is representing a completely pure devotee. So in those prayers, Prahlad Maharaj also prayed in a similar way. He prayed that to take all of the sins of all the suffering living entities, and he will accept responsibility for them. This is why Lord Chaitanya is saying to Vasudeva Datta, he said, such a statement is not at all astonishing, because you are the incarnation of Prahlad Maharaj. And it appears that Lord Krishna has bestowed complete mercy upon you. There is no doubt about it. Actually, why is it that Mahaprabhu is saying this to Vasudeva Datta? That it's very clear that Lord Krishna has bestowed complete mercy upon him. Because you see his compassion. No one can be compassionate like that unless they have received completely the mercy of Supreme Lord Krishna. Now, Mahaprabhu continues to speak to Vasudeva Datta, and he says to him, whatever a pure devotee wants from his master, Lord Krishna, Krishna doubtlessly grants. Whatever a pure devotee wants from his master, Lord Krishna, undoubtedly grants. Because Krishna has no duty other than to fulfill the desires of his devotee. That's Krishna's only duty. So whatever he wants, Krishna definitely will grant. Mahaprabhu is telling this to Vasudeva Datta. Then he goes on. He says, if you desire the deliverance of all living entities within the universe, then all of them can be delivered even without your undergoing the tribulations of sinful activity. He says, Mahaprabhu says, Krishna is not incapable, for he has all potencies. Why would he induce you to suffer the sinful reactions of other living entities? Whosoever welfare you desire immediately becomes a Vaishnava. And Krishna delivers all Vaishnavas from the reactions of their past sinful activities. Then Lord Chaitanya is quoting a verse, okay? He's quoting a verse now. That verse is from the Brahma Samhita of Lord Brahma. It's talking about how Lord Govinda, Krishna, burns to ashes all results of karma of his devotees. Here's the verse. Yastvindra gopam atavindras ahosva karma bandhanu rupa palabhajanam atanoti karmani nirdahati kintu cha bhakti bhajam govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the original personality of Godhead, Govinda, who regulates the sufferings and the enjoyments due to fruitive activity. He does this for everyone, from the heavenly King Indra, and even down to the smallest insect. That very personality of Godhead destroys the karmic reactions of one engaged in devotional service. So this is what Lord Chaitanya is telling to Vasudeva Datta. He's telling Vasudeva Datta that whatever a pure devotee wants from his master, Lord Krishna, doubtlessly he grants that. Because Krishna has no duty other than to fulfill the desire of his devotee. And if you desire the deliverance of all living entities within the whole universe, then all of them can be delivered even without your undergoing the tribulations of sinful activity. Krishna is not incapable, for he has all potencies. So why would he induce you to suffer the sinful reactions of all other living entities? Whosoever welfare that you desire immediately becomes a Vaishnava. And Krishna delivers all Vaishnavas from the reactions of their past sinful activities. Then he quotes the verse that I just read, how Krishna burns to ashes all the sinful reactions of his pure devotees. Then Lord Chaitanya goes on and he says, because of your honest desire, because of your honest desire, all living entities within the universe will be delivered. For Krishna does not have to do anything to deliver all the living entities of the universe. Well, how is that? Now he explains. He says, just as there are millions of fruits on the Udumbara tree, some tree. There are millions of fruits on this tree. Similarly, millions of universes float on the waters of the river Viraja. The river Viraja is in between the material universe and the spiritual realm. It's like a river. And there are millions of universes that are floating on that river, Viraja. Can you imagine? No, we can't. It's beyond imagination. So he says the Udumbara tree is filled with millions of fruits, and if one fruit falls down and it is destroyed, the tree does not even consider the loss. Understand? So in the same way, if one universe is vacated due to the living entities having been liberated, then that is a very little thing for Krishna. He does not take it very seriously. Mahaprabhu goes on. He says the entire spiritual world constitutes the unlimited opulence of Krishna, the spiritual world, beyond this world. And it constitutes the unlimited opulence of Krishna. And there are innumerable Vaikuntha planets there. And the causal ocean is considered the surrounding waters of Vaikuntha Loka. Causal ocean is where all of our material universes are floating. Then he goes on, Maya, the material energy, Maya, and her unlimited material universes are situated in that causal ocean. Indeed, Maya appears to be floating like a pot filled with mustard seeds. Now, you know how small mustard seeds are? So if you have a pot and it's filled with so many mustard seeds, right? So that's the nature of the material existence, like a pot filled with so many mustard seeds, that there are each mustard seed representing a vast universe. But in Maya's domain, this is nothing. So of the millions of mustard seeds floating in that pot, if one seed is lost, then the loss is not at all significant. If one seed is lost, is that significant?
Nope.
No. Why? Because there's millions and millions and millions. Similarly, if one universe is lost, it is not significant to Lord Krishna. Mahaprabhu continues, to say nothing of one universal mustard seed, even if all the universes and the material energy Maya are destroyed, Krishna does not even consider the loss. If a person possessing millions of wish-fulfilling cows, the name of that is a kamadenu, okay? A kamadenu, denu means cow, and kam means desire. So there are cows that are called kamadenus in the spiritual world. They can completely manifest anything instantaneously if you desire it. Yes, even in the heavenly planets they have such cows. I remember when Bhakti Swarup Sridhar Maharaj was here, he was telling this amazing pastime about, about a kamadenu that was like manifesting millions of soldiers. I don't remember the details of the pastime. Now, if a person possessing millions of wish-fulfilling cows, if that person who possesses millions of wish-fulfilling cows, if he loses one she-goat, he does not consider the loss. What's that? Krishna owns all 6 opulences in full. You remember that day we were talking about the word Bhagavan? 6 opulences in full. So Krishna owns all 6 opulences in full. And if the entire material energy is destroyed, what does he lose? Now Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued. He quoted another verse. Let me see where this verse is from. It is quoted from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 87th chapter. These are the prayers from the personified Vedas who are glorifying the Lord. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu quotes this verse. I'm not going to read the Sanskrit. O my Lord, O unconquerable one, O master of all potencies, please exhibit your internal potency to conquer the nescience of all moving and inert living entities. Due to nescience, they accept all kinds of faulty things, thus provoking a fearful situation. O Lord, please show your glories. You can do this very easily, for your internal potency is beyond the external potency, and you are the reservoir of all opulence. You are also the demonstrator of the material potency. You are also always engaged in your pastimes in the spiritual world, where you exhibit your reserved internal potency. And sometimes you exhibit the external potency by glancing over it. And thus you manifest your pastimes. The Vedas confirm your 2 potencies, spiritual and material. The Vedas confirm your 2 potencies, and they accept both types of pastimes due to them. So Mahaprabhu quoted this verse. Then it's described here. In this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu described the good qualities of his devotees one after the other, and he then embraced them and bade them farewell. So this is Mahaprabhu in Jagannath Puri, sitting with all of his great devotees. And he's embracing each one of them and speaking to them individually and glorifying them. In this case, we just heard of the request of Vasudev Datta, who was asking Mahaprabhu because he could not tolerate to see the sufferings of all the jivas in this material world. How they are continually suffering, birth, death, old age, disease, threefold miseries, everything. And they are trapped by the constant chain of their karmic reactions to their own activities, birth after birth, which are like a huge mountain accumulated of all these karmic reactions. So Vasudeva Datta's mood, Jai Shri Shri Radha Govinda Ki Jai. So Vasudeva Datta's mood was what? Absolute compassion, melting heart, feeling so much anxiety to see the sufferings of the jivas that he desired to request Mahaprabhu, please place all of their sinful activities on my head, and I will suffer endlessly, perpetually in hell. And then what did Mahaprabhu tell to him? He says, oh, Vasudeva, this is surely the symptom that Krishna has given you his complete mercy and blessings, that you could even have such a desire. But what did Mahaprabhu explain? Yes, it is true. If Krishna, his only duty is to fulfill the desires of his devotees. See, he doesn't have to go to work and do this and that. But Krishna accepts this as his duty. If my devotee, my pure devotees, who have no desires other than to serve me, if they have any desire, I will fulfill that. And so in this case, Mahaprabhu gave an entire explanation about the whole material creation and how many universes there are and how many unlimited numbers of living entities there are and how vast this is, millions of universes, like mustard seeds in a pot. And it's all in the material creation, and that's only a tiny, tiny little portion of Krishna's entire spiritual creation. And if one universe, every living entity gets liberated, and the universe doesn't exist anymore, what is that any loss for Krishna? Nothing. So Mahaprabhu answered in that way. Yes.
Can I ask a quick question, Mark?
Yeah.
How can Krishna's promise to his devotee in this case be fulfilled if the jiva is not also able to make some endeavor? So is it in the sense of like, oh, you'll be put on the path of Krishna consciousness. So the beginning of the process of liberation is there. But just thinking of the description of the monkey needing to hold on to the mother's back. If the jiva is also not making some endeavor, how is that promise of Krishna fulfilled?
Which promise are you speaking of? The promise of Krishna.
The promise to Vasudeva or did he make that promise to Vasudeva?
No, not directly.
Yeah.
He said, Krishna will fulfill your desire. But then he explained philosophically how this is something devotees have pondered this over the years. Okay, but Mahaprabhu, first of all, there's nothing that Krishna cannot do.
Of course. So
see now, and he's also making that point here. If to fulfill his devotee's desire, he has to liberate every living entity in the entire material universes. And if Krishna wants, instantaneously they can all be liberated. Liberated means they will not any longer be in the material universe. They will not any longer be subject to their accumulated sinful reactions and so forth, that they'll have to continue to take birth again and again. Okay? They'll be completely freed. So he told Vasudeva Datta that Krishna can do this very easily without having to burden you that you'll have to suffer. No. Krishna can just immediately. And can he? Absolutely. If Krishna wants to send all the jivas, and you can't count the number of jivas in one material universe, what to speak of all the jivas. They're infinite in number. But if there's a pure devotee desires, and Krishna desires to fulfill that, then he can send everyone to Vaikuntha. It doesn't say that he's sending them to Goloka Vrindavan. This is one significant point, because Vaikuntha, there are many, many stories in the Shastras of living entities that were even in the body of a crow that fell into a little river. In the story of Jagannath, fell off of a branch of a tree into this river, and suddenly it emerged from the river with a four-armed form and went to Vaikuntha. We've heard many, many stories like this. So Vaikuntha can be attained in that way, if Krishna desires, if his pure devotee desires. But attaining Krishna's personal association, Swayam Bhagavan Krishna, in Goloka Vrindavan, it will require undergoing the process of bhakti. Just like, for example, it's told in the Shastras, in fact, in Prahlad Maharaj Charitra, that even if a devotee is a Kanishta Adhikari, by that devotee's endeavor, all of his previous ancestors, 7 generations, and also forward into the future, 7 generations, they'll all be liberated. But what does that mean? Gurudev explained. Those jivas, despite whatever their past karma may have been, how they're, condemned to have to suffer in such and such a way and so forth, okay? No, that will be defeated because of them receiving this blessings of a pure devotee, or even a Kanishta Adhikari, who eventually will become a pure devotee, but a sincere Kanishta 7 generations. They'll be liberated, which means Krishna is now going to arrange for each one of those individually to come into contact with Vaishnavas. He will give them all the necessary qualifications to come onto the path of bhakti. And then from there, they will perform their activities and they will achieve the results of Krishna prema. Now, of course, this also is determined by that they're taking birth now in Kali Yuga, during this Danya Kali Yuga. Because if it's not this Danya Kali Yuga, then they are not going to Goloka Vrindavan. They will go to Vaikuntha. Yes. Because all of the other incarnations in the Kali Yugas in Lord Brahma's day, that there's 1,000 Yuga cycles. So that means that there's 1,000 Kali Yugas. Only one of them, Mahaprabhu appears. We are in that. Very amazingly. Very amazingly. Only in Danya Kali Yuga, when Krishna comes combined with Srimati Radhika, this gift is given.
That mood is only available when Mahaprabhu.
That's right, because in the other Kali Yugas, the incarnation, the Yuga avatar, is Vishnu. Is the incarnation of Vishnu in every other Kali Yuga. So, and then also Treta Yuga, Satya Yuga, all of the Yugas, the incarnation is Vishnu. Krishna only comes once, Krishna himself, only once in a whole day of Brahma. And that's why that verse, Anarpita Chirim Chirat, Rupa Goswami wrote, is describing that not for a very, very long time this has never been given before. But that long time is since the previous day, the previous kalpa of Lord Brahma, which we have calculated. You can use your little calculator, and it means 8.6 billion years. That's the length of time. So it's extremely rare. When something is valuable, it is valuable by dint of the fact that it's very rare. If something's given here, there, and everywhere, then it's not that valuable, right? But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come to give that which can never before be given. And that's why Rupa Goswami told to him the verse, Namo Mahabhadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate. He specified, you are Krishna, but now your name is Krishna Chaitanya, and Gora Tvishe, you have golden color. So much is revealed in that verse. So in this way, Vasudev Datta's request was sincere. And I just want to make the point that you see the extreme depth of compassion that is there in the hearts of the devotees of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Srila Prabhupada even wrote in his purport in this section of Chaitanya Charitamrita that generally in the Christianity, Lord Jesus Christ is glorified as being so compassionate that he sacrificed himself for the sins of others. The whole story of Jesus Christ and his crucifixion and all of that is to indicate that he has come for this mission to suffer on behalf of all the people that will follow him and will believe in him. That if they believe in him, then they're saved, right? So Srila Prabhupada made a comparison in his purport in this section. He said, regarding Jesus Christ, that he agreed to suffer on behalf of the sinful reactions of those persons who have faith in him, who believe in him, and so forth, right? Then they're saved. They won't have to go to hell. Right? But here, Vasudeva Datta is willing not just for his followers, like Jesus Christ is, for everyone. So therefore, Prabhupada actually wrote, he's millions of times more merciful than Lord Jesus Christ in this context, you see. So this, what we just read, is in relation to what Bhaktivinoda Thakur has told. Wait a minute, wrong book. Wrong device. Here we are, back again. That a devotee, a Vaishnava, should develop this mood of compassion, that he feels distress when witnessing the distress of others. And in that context, we just heard the reference of Lord Chaitanya's great devotee, Vasudeva Datta Thakur. So now I'm just reading this last little part and we'll finish for the Artik. In that same section, there's one more short verse being quoted, and it's being quoted in relation to the necessity of possessing a pure heart. For Vaishnavas, it is necessary to possess a pure heart. So here's the statement made by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Madhya Lila chapter 15. It's the same chapter that we just read. Sahaje nirmala e brahmana hridoy, Krishnara bosite e jogya stan hoy. Here's the word nirmala. Nirmala means pure, without any contamination. And sahaje means natural. So he's saying that the heart of a brahmana is naturally pure. And then he said, Krishnara bosite e jogya stan hoy. That heart, being pure, is an appropriate place for Krishna to sit. Krishna will only sit in a heart that is completely pure. So, this is necessary. Gradually the heart of the Vaishnava becomes more pure, more pure. This is the process that we are undergoing. This process of sadhana bhakti will gradually eliminate anarthas and sinful reactions and all impurities. They will be eliminated from the heart. And when the heart becomes pure, then Krishna is very attracted to come and to sit there in our heart. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol Jai Shri Upadeshamritam Ki Jai Srila Rupa Goswami Pada Ki Jai Jai Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur Ki Jai Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu Ki Jai Sri Chaitanya Charitamritam Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol Vancha Kalpadavascha Kripa Sindhu Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. could you stop the Facebook and share it?